Hey, we're doing something a little bit different today. We're starting a new segment about professionals, but not just any old professionals that are from the area. We think it's pretty important that we recognize, that you can come from Toledo, you can come from Perrysburg, you can come from Swanton, and you can actually get out there and do this for a living. Be on Broadway, be on national tours, be on stage, be on Tech Crew, be in the pit. We think it's super, super important. So we're going to have our first guy on, Trevor, here. So hopefully you're as excited as we are, because we're very excited to have Trevor on.
Hello.
Trevor, how the hell you doing?
I'm good. How are you, man?
Wonderful. We're pretty happy to have you be able to find time for us, obviously. So where are you at right now? You in New York City?
I'm actually in Lancaster, Pennsylvania right now.
Oh, on the road doing the show, right?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, and what is that show exactly? Came through Toledo, didn't it?
It did. It was just we were just there last night, actually.
I know we're terrible. We were, I was actually speaking to the booking people and she's like, "Oh, you're going to be able to get him on?" Because I mentioned to him, I said, Trevor's a local guy. And she was like, "Oh, really? Are you going to have him on?" I said, "Not soon enough, though. Sorry."
It's Ron Matnick here, Tyler's dad, saying hi.
Oh, hey.
Yeah.
Hi.
So Ron, obviously, because of Tyler?
We never talked. I've never spoken to you before, but I've seen you in many plays.
Oh.
Yeah. I know you through Tyler. I've seen you around.
Seen you around.
Yeah. I saw you in Footloose. You were the father, the minister.
That's right.
Saw you in Drowsy Chaperone. You were Adolfo, I think.
Oh.
Yep.
And my favorite line was you would go, "What?"
Yes,
that's it.
So the Million Dollar Quartet is what you're a part of right now.
Yes.
So
correct.
So we're going to start there just so we establish what the heck you're doing. And then we're going to go way back. Okay. You got like 2 hours
Absolutely.
to talk to us.
He's on the bus.
I got as long as you guys need.
All right. You're a hell of a guy. Thanks, man. So Million Dollar Quartet are you doing the Christmas one right now?
Yeah, so right now this is actually the world premiere tour of Million Dollar Quartet Christmas, which is it is I guess you could call it the sequel of Million Dollar Quartet. That's how I've been describing it. It's kind of the continuation from the original show. It's like what would have happened if like they kind of kept going, and it leans into, because the actual Million Dollar Quartet night, those 4 guys were there for a Christmas party. So the writers of the show were like, "Hey, let's lean into the Christmas party element of this, and we can, I don't want to say it's a cash grab, but it is. People like Christmas. It's a great show. It's super fun. It's a nice, snappy 90-minute, like super fun, exciting, high energy Christmas show. And I think that their ultimate goal with this is to cast like one tour cast and then have the show switch based on what time of year it is.
Well, you can call it a cash grab, but who cares? It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun, right?
Exactly.
The point of entertainment is to be entertaining. So why not do it?
Exactly. And who do you play in this?
I'm Jerry Lee Lewis.
Yeah. See, Rod told me you were Jerry Lewis. Totally threw me off. I'm like, it's not a comedy?
Is Dean Martin
Yeah,
in
I
it?
find out like today that it's not Jerry Lewis, it's Jerry Lee Lewis, which
Jerry
totally changed
Lee
my...
Lewis.
Yeah, I'm like, well, thanks for... I'm a little thick. I hear what I hear, and I just stop listening, I think, is what the problem is with me.
They are very, very different.
Yeah, slightly, yeah.
To be Jerry Lee Lewis, you had to do some research. Tell us about that.
Correct. Yeah, so Jerry Lee Lewis, obviously of Great Balls of Fire fame. So really, the research I had to do was probably the most fun for any show I've done, because pretty much all I did was watch video after video of Jerry Lee concerts and read his biography and all this stuff just to get sort of a background, because this role is like the first time I've played a person who is still alive even. It's not just like a historical person. Like Jerry Lee Lewis is alive. Like he's he's in his 80s now, but he's, of those 4 guys, he's the last man standing, if you will. And it's, so that's a different challenge as opposed to like other roles where you do kind of have some or a lot of creative liberty to do with it what you want. This is very much like, I need to do the stuff Jerry did. I need to sound like Jerry Lee. I need to play like Jerry Lee. I need the audience to see me and think like, oh, that's Jerry Lee.
Right.
You're playing the piano behind your back.
I do. Yeah.
Oh, get out of town! Really?
Yeah, you jump. I jump over the piano, like so. You're sitting on top of it. So you jump over it, sit on top, and then you lean back and play behind your back for a part of the show.
Well, I guess you got it because if you don't, then people will walk away and be disappointed. Like
Exactly.
Know,
like
man.
if you don't do the Jerry Lee stuff, if you don't do the stand on the piano and play with your feet and all that stuff.
That was Jerry Leonard Lewis. That wasn't Jerry Lee Lewis. He didn't play backwards. Yeah.
And did you go like great balls of fire? You really hit that.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
He hits the balls really good.
Yeah.
Nice.
You got to get all that. You got to get all that, and people will tell you too.
Yeah.
Like people will come to the stage door, and if they don't find you convincing, actually, the guy that plays Elvis gets it more than anything because people have a very specific. It's almost like nostalgia glasses with Elvis too, where they have this image of him, and like the guy that plays Elvis will be like, yeah, no, Elvis never actually did that stuff that people think about, and like there's lots of like pictures people reference, or he'll be like, you know, that stuff Elvis did in like the 60s, 70s. That's like Vegas era Elvis, and when the show takes place is 1956. Like this is the budding start of all these guys' careers.
Very cool.
You know, Elvis is just taking off. So you know he's obviously he's Elvis, so he has taken off at this point. But this is like his first year of like success.
Cool.
So it's a slightly different version of these guys than what people would have been used to if they saw a concert in the 70s with Elvis.
So we're going to go back now. So now we actually are going to go back because now we've established that you're kind of a big deal. And that's why we called you to begin with. So, but you're from Perrysburg. So I want you to go all the way back and say, and tell us, like you started in elementary school, obviously you did this and you did that. Don't skimp on the details. We want to know because it's kind of a big deal, and the reason why we're doing this series with people who are working professionally in the industry is I do think, and Ron and I do believe that there's this misconception that, well, we're from Perrysburg. There's no way we could ever do any of this stuff, and we're here to say BS on that. So that's why we have you on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell us, second grade, you got cast in the lead role in the play, probably, right?
So my first ever theater experience, I actually got involved in the theater a lot because my older brother did it. I have an older brother. He's 5 years older than me. So, you know, growing up, I always looked up to him and wanted to do what he was doing. And so he did theater in middle school. And so I saw those shows as a kid, and I actually did the Perrysburg Youth Summer Theater Program. It was actually my very first start doing theater. It was probably the summer between second and third grade, or third and fourth grade. I can't really remember, but you know, so that's when that was like the first time I acted in Music Man Junior.
Nice.
And I was the train conductor for a scene, and you know, that's when, and from then on, I did that summer program pretty much every summer through middle school. And
so you're like 7 and 8 when you
started
started, and basically right around that age.
Yeah.
So cool.
Well, and I had started piano lessons by that point because when I was 5 or 6, we had a piano in the house growing up, and I'd always play around on it. And my parents eventually gave me the sort of ultimatum as a kid of like, hey, you need to do like an extracurricular. So we're gonna either like pick a sport and we'll let you try out a sport, or we can get you piano lessons. And I already liked the piano, and I was playing around on it, and I'm not the best at sports, and then I've never really really been. Yeah, I'm just anything where I got to run. I generally try to avoid it if I can. I'm okay with dance and all that kind of stuff for theater, but running just not my thing.
No, if there's not a zombie chasing you, why the hell are you running, right? I don't get this. Yeah.
Exactly. I need a zombie or like a wild animal. Then we can talk. But they sort of posed to me that question of what sport do you want to do, or we can put you into piano lessons and music lessons. So I chose piano lessons, obviously, and I'm very glad I did because
great choice.
I will say the piano element of my skill set is what has gotten me the most work as a professional.
Yeah,
it's that other thing that not everyone else can do. It's like in New York, and I'm getting off topic. I'll come back.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
Seventh grade, middle school, Trevor, eventually. But the big thing in New York is just everybody there can sing, everybody can act, everybody can dance, like everyone. So being talented is a prerequisite in my opinion. It's just you're kind of already expected to be able to sing when you walk in. But if you have something else that sets you apart, and there's now more and more and more shows are doing these actor musician kind of things where they're having the actors play instruments on stage. And so really, like I tell anytime I do any of these talks or when I talk to a high school or to a college, like things like that, I'm always telling them, like, pick up an instrument. Like, doesn't matter what instrument. It can be guitar, it can be piano, it can be flute. It doesn't matter. Just do something else, because you never know when that might come in handy. Like we've thrown a fiddle into Million Dollar Quartet, played by Sam Phillips, who's the like narrator guy for the show, and he's normally just an only speaking role. Kind of sings in the finale, but like, you know, nothing really featured, but he could play fiddle and it sounds really cool.
Cool,
On the
just
Johnny
add it to
Cash
it, right?
song,
Yeah.
Ghost Riders. And it's a pretty cool, funny reveal that, you know, Sam Phillips comes out playing a fiddle. But it's things like that. It's just that little extra something that can make you that much more marketable in a professional setting. And an instrument is a great way to do that. And also just being a musician in general is a little different than, you know, being just a good singer. Like I know good singers that are terrible musicians.
Right.
You know, that like,
and also
I know
being
good
able
singers
to
that
help you read music and all the other kind of stuff too.
Exactly. I know like singers that don't read music, and I'm just,
right.
And to me, I've been reading music since I was 5-6 years old. Like it's a second language to me. Like I can sight read piano music and stuff. It's so baffling to me when they're like, they have to like hear it and they can just like replicate what you do, but they can't, like, they you know, they don't know like what key we're in and things like that just, and it plays such a big part when you're doing, you know, harmony work and stuff, that just that musicianship of being able to be like, oh, I'm on the fifth of the chord here. Like, great. I know how my part moves and how I relate to the other parts and
that
things
works
like
when
that.
you're 8 years old and in middle school times, but when you want to be a professional, it's time to step it up, isn't it?
Exactly. Well, because the big thing with the professional world is the speed with which stuff happens. You know, even with a new show, like we're rehearsing for maybe 2 weeks and then the show's up. It's like you not only have to, it just has to be quick. Like, granted, it's a little different than, you know, high school or community theater where you're only rehearsing, you know, 6 to 10 because people have school and day jobs and stuff. You know, we actually get to do a full, you know, 10 to 6, 8-hour rehearsal day. So it's a little different in that setting. You do have more time in each day because it's a job and not,
right.
You know,
you
just
got 2 weeks though, man, because we need to start making some money.
Yeah. But you got 2 weeks. You got to be off book day one usually.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah.
You know, it's things like that. Or usually the standard rule is just the second time you touch anything, it's off book. So it's like if you're working on a scene, you can have your script in hand, take notes, do whatever. The next time we run that scene in rehearsal, like the next day or whatever, off book.
Bitchin'. Do they give you any of this stuff ahead of time then too? Like, here's the stuff.
Usually.
So
yeah, usually
what are you doing at home? Start working, right?
Exactly. Usually you'll get the script, you know, a week or two out, or sometimes even more, depending on the contract and how far out they plan it. Some theaters will cast shows like 3 months in advance. Sometimes some guy backed out of a contract last minute and now they're scrambling and suddenly I'm now on a plane 2 days from now starting rehearsal. Like that's happened before, where they've been like, hey, somebody backed out or they got hurt or they got sick, or in nowadays settings, that's it's like a vaccine thing too, where they're like, hey, this guy told us he was vaccinated, turns out he wasn't. Like now we're kind of screwed unless we can find somebody.
Back
like
against the wall, we need to have somebody who knows how to play the piano, and you're the man. Right?
Exactly.
Like,
so that's and so you know, having that extra skill set has been so helpful for me, and it has been pretty much my entire breadwinning thing has been piano shows. It's been Million Dollar Quartet, and there's this other show I do called Murder for Two, which is like a 2-person sort of it kind of has like a Monty Python, like 39 steps kind of feel to it, where it's 2 guys, one plays the detective, the other guy plays all like 10 suspects. So you're like you're doing different voices and you're bouncing around.
So I know what you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, I know this show he's talking about.
Oregon Community Theater.
If you had mentioned this 3 months ago, I'd be like, what?
But yeah, Oregon Community Theater just did it.
My
That's
God,
cool.
I love 39. I want to do that show so badly. But, I've not had the opportunity yet.
And dude, they offered it for free. So people in the area could go see it for free because they were just opening back up after post-COVID, and they just wanted people to come see the show. So back to your junior high time, though.
Wait. Kyle does not want you to be in the musical once. As a piano player.
I want him to be in whatever he wants to be in.
He doesn't
I just won't come see once. That's all.
I'm pretty sure the piano player think the piano player in Once is the girl, right?
Yeah, she
I don't
plays,
know
yep.
Once that well because
Mhm.
I don't play guitar at all, and I think I think I've looked into that, and it's like, oh, the one guy that plays piano also has to play like cello or something.
Oh.
I'm like,
Yeah,
oh crap.
they have a nice duet where she sits
So-
by the piano.
So
and does
back
this.
to 7th grade. You're in Perrysburg Junior High.
We're in Perry. So I've done at this point. I've done the summer music camp thing. Kind of a few years, and going into middle school, I then did all of the middle school productions and stuff. So I was in I did like Annie Junior, and I did High School Musical my 8th grade year, and things like that. And then obviously moving on to high school was then. I was in all the high school shows, and Perrysburg Theater Department is
How old are you,
phenomenal,
Trevor? We
and
should probably establish that too.
I am 29.
29, and he remembers that he did High School Musical in junior high. I love that.
Annie Junior.
I do.
Yeah.
And Annie Junior.
I do.
And Perrysburg High School. Who was your director there?
Rob Gentry.
Yeah,
Rob
that's
Gentry,
the name.
yeah.
We hear his
So,
name
and
all the
he
time.
just retired recently,
Yes,
I believe.
we hear his name all the time.
I just love that it's been how long, and you still remember the exact show that you did in junior high was Annie Junior. It's like,
Look,
that's
I mean,
awesome.
those experiences were so formative for me. Wanting to do this as a career.
Right.
If I hadn't had those opportunities in middle school and high school to really explore this and to see like, hey, this is a thing I'm good at this, and I think I could do this professionally. Like, I don't think I would have gone on to do it.
And that leads me to my next thing is how did it become like, oh, I might want to actually do this for a living? And who encouraged you? Who didn't look at you and say, grow up, kid, you have no chance doing this. Start being something practical. What happened there? You have to have that encouragement or something, right? I mean, somebody had to tell you. So how did you decide this is what I want to do?
Well, I started in high school. I started taking voice lessons with a guy named Lance Ashmore, who's a voice teacher at BGSU, and he also teaches at Ohio Northern, which is where I ended up going. And I saw my brother in a show at Ohio Northern. I saw him in South Pacific, and Lance, who would become my voice teacher, was playing Emil, the main character in that. And he has this like amazing operatic baritone voice, and I was like, whoa! And so I looked in the program at his bio and saw he was a voice teacher at BG, and I was like, I want this guy to teach me. And so I reached out to him through my brother, and he was like, I don't normally take high school students, but hey, let's have a trial lesson and see. And he ended up accepting me as a student, and he really gave me a lot of support and also just a crazy amount of training just in high school even. And then ultimately was a determining factor in me going to Ohio Northern, because I was like, oh, I can keep this same voice teacher, and Lance and I have worked so well over these last like 3 years together, and my voice has come so far working with him. I want to just continue on with that.
So he wasn't Bowling Green, but then he went to Ohio Northern?
Well, he's an adjunct faculty, so he teaches like 2 days. He teaches like 2 days at Ohio Northern, like 2 days at BG, and I think 1 day at University of Findlay.
Oh. Or at least he was.
So he kind of teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's still adjunct. I don't know if it's still the same schedule, but I know he does he usually does a couple days at each of these schools, because all he does is, all day long he's just in hour-long voice lesson after voice lesson.
You were actually mature enough in high school to actually say, I want to do this. I'm going to call on my own this person.
Yeah. Well, I reached out to him kind of through my brother, because my brother was in the show with him, and I was like, hey, can you see if Lance will entertain the idea of taking a high school student? Does he accept students? We'll pay for it, obviously.
High school money is green also. So, I mean.
and
exactly. Those checks still clear for him.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and he was one of your inspirations.
well, he was a big, supportive person for me. It was really I super respect his voice and his talent and his teaching ability and what he's done for me. And he was sort of a big supportive factor of just hey, if you want to do this, I think you could,
Yeah,
and that's kind of all I needed to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of all I needed to hear as a kid, was just oh, and so I did have I had my fallback plans. I had a few schools that I was looking at for what was I? I was going to go into I wanted to be a math teacher.
Oh,
I think
wow.
is what it was like.
That's
what was my fallback, because I was always a huge math and science kid, which is not usually the norm for a theater person or an artist. I've found, but I've also found that like gives me sort of an interesting take on things, because I do have such a mathematically centric mind that I look very analytically at music and at theater and things like that. And I think I just approach it from a different angle than most artists do.
Yeah. Our Janine Bachman, who was on here as a music director, she just said she needed to count to 4, and that was it. She was good.
And in fact, you're friends with Will Bachman, I believe.
I am, yeah. Oh my God, yeah.
I know Will Bachman. We know Nicole Navarre. You're friends with her.
Yeah, I know all of them through. I did in high school. I did a BGSU summer like musical theater camp thing. Wow. I think it was run by a guy named Todd Schreiber.
I know him
at the time.
He's a music director. Yeah. He's really great. He's an award-winning music director. Yeah. We're gonna have Todd on here eventually as well. Yeah.
Well, that's like he was another. Now that like we're getting in, that like unlocked a whole other chunk of memories. Oh my God.
Yeah, Todd's a great pianist, so that's probably why. Yeah.
Oh my God, like amazing. Like that. Like he was a huge piano inspiration for me. Just watching him. Like his thing for me was the thing I was most impressed with was his sight reading. Because we would do little like recital things, and you just put a sheet of music in front of him, and he's like, "Okay, cool, boom, plays it first time through, never practiced it once, like plays it flawlessly while you're singing." And that to me, like I can now kind of do that. I'm still not the best sight reader in the world, but I don't think I'm as good as Todd at sight reading.
Yeah,
but,
no, he's great. That's a Janine thing too. She can do the same thing. Just throw it anybody who's these accompanists for these auditions, they don't know what music's going to be plopped down in front of them. And there it is.
Exactly.
Oh, I've never played this before. There you go. Done. It's like, wow, that's impressive.
So now you're in high school and you're doing plays there. What plays did you do? And
well, now he's off and he's decided he's going to do this for a living now. So your parents looked at you and said, "I don't think so." Is that what they did?
Well, they were supportive, but they were realistic. They were like, if this is something you really, really, really want to do, like we will get behind you and we will support you. However we can. But they were like, but also like we hear all these horror stories and things like that. And I think it really took, I actually know the moment when my mom was like, finally like, oh, okay, like he should do this. I went to New York to audition for NYU and actually got into NYU, Steinhardt, the like music school versus the theater school. Okay. So I would have been a vocal performance major with a focus on musical theater. I think would have been my technical degree title. So I got into there and like the judging panel, they actually had like a break, like right after my audition was their like scheduled break. And so they came out of the room and I was still in the like lobby with my mom talking to her, and they came up and like they talked to my mom and like told her what a great job I did in my audition and how happy they were to meet me and see me. And I think that was the moment where she was like, oh, like I think she needed, somebody that was like a high up official at a sort of like a very high end college,
prestigious,
for music,
recognized
to be like,
school. Yeah. Not somebody from Perrysburg telling her son can play piano really well, but somebody from NYU that said this guy could do it legit. She's like, oh, maybe he can do it. Like,
yeah, I think that was the moment where she was like, oh, okay, this maybe isn't just a hobby anymore. Like maybe like he can do this for real. And from there, like obviously, and even before that, they were always supportive. My parents have never been like, hey, that's a dumb idea. Don't do it. You're never going to succeed. Like, do something more realistic.
Wake up, dreamer. Get a real job. They didn't do any of that.
Exactly.
Isn't there some asphalt that needs to be poured? Come on. They didn't do that to you.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. No, they did not. But they were always realistic. They were like, hey, have a fallback plan. They were like, if this doesn't work out, like, it's fine. If it doesn't, like, there's no harm done. Like, you can do something else.
Did you have a fallback plan?
I mean, I had BGSU for education as was my fallback college if I didn't get into anywhere for musical theater. And I ended up I got waitlisted at U of M, and I got into NYU, and then I got into Ohio Northern, and I got waitlisted at Baldwin Wallace.
Wow.
And so I ended up choosing Ohio Northern for a couple reasons. I went with the smaller school feel because I felt like I would get more personalized attention, and I was absolutely right about that. Mm-hmm. And Ohio Northern gave me a lot more money versus NYU. So I got a huge scholarship from ONU and a huge talent scholarship from ONU, and it doesn't help that the starting prices of both those schools, NYU is about double. NYU is like, I think it's close to like 60, 70 grand a year now.
Yeah, it's like 70 grand a year now.
It's crazy. So I was just like, do I really want to like take out the student loans and start into what is already a pretty low paying career, start off with that kind of debt hanging over me, all to just go to NYU? And I realized, like, you know, the only things that aside from being like a prestigious name, it's not really the name of your school that gets you jobs. It's you know, it's you. Like all that is, like all my colleges now is one line on my resume towards the bottom under the education section. You know,
so it didn't open up any doors. So
well, it's more about the training you get there and what you do with that versus the name of the school. And true, like some schools can do like it's a whole networking game to do theater. So some schools do set you up like that, but I don't know. My school had guest directors from Broadway come in all the time, so I got to work with, you know, not like crazy huge names, but I got to work with actual like Broadway directors and actual people that are out there doing the work right now. And I got to work with agents and things like that because, you know, the small school thing, they were like, hey, we're going to bring people to you. So we got like all kinds of cool master classes, and like Phil Reno has family in Findlay and is really good friends with Kirsten Osmond-Manley, who is the head of the department at Ohio Northern. And Phil Reno is a famous Broadway music director. Like he's the music director for The Producers and Something Rotten and just countless other shows. And like,
I'm glad you told us that, because we are not, we're really just two regular guys, like we say in our title. It's like, you know, so this is all learning and exciting for us. So when you talk, we're like, who's this guy? Oh, I've heard of Something Rotten. I've heard of The Producers. I know some. Oh wow, he's a big deal. He's right.
Exactly. So he's a Broadway music director, Broadway conductor, and he came in probably once a year to do a master class with us. So I got to sing for Phil Reno and work with Phil Reno and things like that, which were just awesome experiences in college that really helped to set me up to sort of hit the ground running when I did end up moving to New York afterwards. But like, yeah, Phil has family and he's got kids in Findlay, Ohio. So he comes back there all the time.
So the big thing is if somebody local is, you know, wants to go off to college, wants to do something on that, you're like, Ohio Northern, man, you don't have to get to NYU. You can go. No,
you can go. There are so many good musical theater and theater programs around the country now. Almost every school's got one now. You know, it's not as exclusive as it used to be. And again, the name of the school on your resume is only going to take you so far. Like it might help get you in the door a little bit, but then you've still got to nail the audition. You've still got to do it. And if that school didn't prepare you well for that, it doesn't matter what the name of the school is. Right. Like you can have like, you know, University of Cincinnati or U of M. Those are two of the biggest musical theater schools that pretty much just funnel almost right into Broadway, but that doesn't apply to everyone.
Right. If you're not good, you're not good. That's just the way it is. Or if you got a shitty work ethic or, you know, whatever.
There's a lot of Ohio Northern.
Yeah. So when you were there and then you did all your work and you got all this great training, did you just get right out and you got a job right away then?
Not really. Well, I did like a lot of summer stock jobs during college. At a lot of those like they've got these big cattle call auditions where a bunch of summer theaters will come to one place and you audition for all of them at once. I'm sure Ron, you know, from Tyler doing like OTAs and things like that, and up does and all that. You've probably heard those names before.
OTAs, up to, I don't know. What's
Ohio.
OTA stand?
Yeah, so OTA is Ohio Theater Alliance. It's like an Ohio audition that's like basically a bunch of these summer stock theaters all come. It's like kind of Ohio, kind of Midwest now.
So is that where you went to first? You go to that to try and find somebody that will hire you?
Yeah, I would go there because those places will do auditions in like February, March for the summer, and it's like specifically geared to getting like college students because these are jobs that are not. I'll call them internships. You know, these are like the theater jobs where you get to do the show, but you're also working in the scene shop or the costume shop during the day, and you're.
Is this while you're like a student? You were doing this?
Yeah.
Okay.
This was like the summers while I was a student.
Gotcha. Yeah. So after your sophomore year,
summers in college. Yeah.
Theater. Gotcha.
Yeah, work in theater like during the summer, go back to college in the fall, you know, do fall and spring semesters, and then get another job there. So I did have a job. I had a summer stock gig. I worked in Big Fork, Montana.
Big Fork, man, what's that language?
Big Fork, yeah.
You just couldn't say that.
I can,
what the fork is going on here, right?
It's near Missoula.
Gotcha. So you did Big Fork, and then you did. So that was all. So that helped geared you up then to actually start working as a professional. It sounds like.
Yeah, and so then the fall after, so I graduated college then in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
So I finished, and then did my summer job in Montana there, and then I moved straight to New York, sort of September, October, and really I didn't get another sort of, I didn't really get my first professional job out of New York City for about a year. I would say I auditioned for about a year in New York before I really got anything. So that was just day after day.
How did you
going
manage
in
to live in New York for a year and not have a job?
I worked at the Gap.
Oh, okay.
I did
Gotcha.
I did have like a day job, but I didn't get like a theater job. I mean,
God,
you know,
yeah,
so
no, that's good. I was just curious.
Yeah, so
you could work at the Gap and live in Manhattan, basically. That's impressive.
Yep, I worked at the Gap, and in Times Square, it was the worst.
Times Square Gap.
It was such a bit. Times Square Gap. Oh my God, was that a busy store?
And you were like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to quit this job, and I'm going to go work at the M&M store. That's what I'm going to do. And that'll be a huge upgrade.
At least that one's got food.
Oh yeah, that's true. And you, a starving guy who's just trying to get a job somewhere, could munch on the M&Ms for a while.
Exactly. So yeah, so I worked day jobs here and there, and I also having the piano skill thing also helps because I'm able to make money doing that in New York. So nowadays when I'm between gigs, I don't have to go work at the Gap or wait tables because I can just play piano for stuff like auditions or people that I have a large network of friends in this business now that all turn to me when they're like, hey, I need an accompaniment track for a song I'm doing.
So be friendly is what you're telling everybody too, right? Be friendly. Don't be a dick.
Absolutely.
Don't burn all your bridges and step on everybody on the way up. Don't do any of that stuff.
Don't do any of that stuff. Okay. No one gets anywhere alone. You know?
Oh, this is why. That's why I never got anywhere, Ron. Right there. That's
the name of the school isn't as important as you said, and then you said no one gets there alone. So those are the two truths.
When you are, I lost my train of effing thought here. I'm gonna have to cut this whole thing now because I forgot what I was gonna say.
Well, when you get it when it pops back into your old head, I
know what I wanted to say. I know what I wanted to say. Sorry, if I don't get it in now, I will die.
Go back to Kyle.
So I wanted to say was when you were doing your no job for a year thing, did you fall into a pit of despair, thinking I made the wrong choice? I should have been a math teacher. I should have been. I mean, how do you not like think you made a freaking mistake? And it was your mom calling you up saying, "Oh, well, I was right." Any of that kind of stuff happen?
A little, yeah. I'll say like it does start to get a little disheartening. I did have a few like promising callbacks in there, which did help to like sort of boost the spirits as it goes. But it's really just I'd always heard that it takes time. So I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna put in the work. I'm gonna go to these auditions, and if nothing happens, nothing happens. But at least I'm showing up. And I've always heard that that's what you have to do is just because, again, it's networking. So going to these auditions, even though you're not getting jobs, you're still being seen by these casting directors who you may think that they're just blowing you off. They don't care. You're in there for 90 seconds and that's it. And they've forgotten about you already. But that's not true. Like they do remember. And after a while, they start to see like, okay, hey, this guy's come in for me now 10 times for different shows. He's always done good work, though. It just hasn't been like the right fit for the show or what have you. And like, you never know what's going on in their minds. So you just have to kind of keep your nose at it and just like keep plugging along. And eventually the right show, the right things are going to line up, which for me, that ended up being Million Dollar Quartet. The right things are just going to fall into place and line up because you've put in that work and you've been seen by these casting directors that then like, a year down the line after they've seen you a bunch, because the thing you also have to think about in the business element of it is the casting director has a job to do as well. They're there to cast the show and they're there to put people in front of because you always see the casting director first and then your callback will be with like the director and the casting director and, whoever else. But it's usually just the casting director at first. Like you're not in front of the creative team for the show at all. And so their job is to put good people in front of the director, because if they put people in front of the director that they're not the right fit for the show, then now we're all back at square one. They've got to book another room to do another round of auditions, and the director's mad, the casting director, for not finding the right people. So you kind of have to build up this trust with casting directors where they're like, hey, I know if I put this guy in front of the director, he's going to do a good job. And
you just wouldn't go away, would you?
Just keep your face in front of them.
Yeah, no, this
exactly.
is great.
You got to keep being seen by them, even if it's a no, even if they barely look up when you're singing. Like sometimes they're just buried down in their paperwork and they like barely even acknowledge you. It's really disheartening. It feels super bad, but you just have to kind of like keep pushing through and honestly just find until the one thing clicks, because I actually got my first job out of New York was doing a show called The Full Monty.
Oh yeah, I love it.
I love that show. It's absolutely one of the most fun shows I've ever been a part of. But that was my first like kind of big professional job out of New York City, where I was like actually being paid real money, and I was at like an equity theater and things like that. It was like I was working with people that had Broadway credits on their resumes, like things like that, where it all started to get really exciting. And then from there, actually, from that one gig, kind of like it was like when it rains, it pours kind of things. It's a snowball effect. It takes so long for that first thing to finally catch, but once it gets rolling, it gets rolling. And the choreographer from Full Monty really liked me, and we hit it off, and we got along really well. And he was like, hey, I'm doing Sister Act after this, and we need someone that can understudy like 5 of the guy roles, because Sister Act is not a super male heavy show.
Right.
So they're like, we need someone that can understudy like all the gangsters and the Monsignor and like, a bunch of stuff. And they're like, do you want to do it? And that was it. Like I got my next job, and that was just all from being friendly with the choreographer at my current job. And so that's all networking is just being nice to people and like being friendly. Like people sometimes have this weird mindset with networking where it's like a thing you actively do. It's like, oh, I'm at this event to network. It's like, no, just talk to people and be nice and be friendly, and then people will want to work with you more, and then they'll call you up to work with you.
Or have you on a podcast.
Wow.
Or have you on a podcast. Wow. Exactly.
How are we? We doing a good networking job over here? Are we friendly?
We're doing great. I'm having a great time.
Oh, we're just trying to get free tickets. Actually, you said you're in Pennsylvania right now. What exactly are you doing?
He's doing the Christmas.
I mean,
so,
is it a night off, or are you about to go on?
It is a night off tonight.
All right.
It's a night off.
Are you in a hotel or in a bus? Shows. Are you at dinner?
I'm in a hotel right now.
Okay.
And I'm just chilling in the hotel.
Very
now.
Glamorous.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's sleeping on a bus most nights, but we get a hotel tonight, so it's not too bad.
I love the story though. I love how you went from being this kid whose older brother was doing it all to having a couple people telling you didn't suck. And the parents who supported you, and then you went to a college that had great training. They brought you everybody, and then bing bang boom, you networked. And you made a bunch of stuff.
But I still...
That's that's all it takes usually. It's like, it really just takes like a couple people telling a kid they can do it, like that's like, so, and like anytime I ever like am talking to younger kids or involved, I try to be as like supportive and like as possible, because you never know what that could mean to somebody growing up. Like I don't even know if Todd Schreiber remembers me. I mean, he may. We're friends on Facebook. I see his name pop up every now and then. Maybe he sees mine. But it's like, but his influence on me was so big that like you just never know when you're working with kids, like what one thing you say to them is going to really like stick or really change sort of their whole trajectory from that point on. So you just have to like I try to be very, very cautious of my words when I'm, talking to kids about theater and like pursuing this profession, because as hard as it is, like I still want to be supportive. But again, it's that sort of supportive but realistic thing where it's like, look, if you want to do this, do it. Like, absolutely. But here's how hard it's going to be. And here's like the actual, like, here's the real world stuff about it. And it's going to be hard. It's going to be a lot of people saying no. It's like for every 50 auditions I do, I get 4 callbacks and 1 job. It's things like that where it's very daunting at first, but eventually it does sort of line up. And if you're a good person to people, and then people keep calling you to work, and I work for the same people all the time. I have a couple directors that just, whenever they're doing stuff, they ask me if I'm available, and if I am, I have a job. Like, it's like things like that where it's just be nice to people, be good. I think the era of the diva is over. You know, I don't think you can be sort of a diva, not nice person and still work professionally.
You were amazing.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thanks for coming on. And I think you're going to be a really big inspiration, because I know that we have a lot of younger listeners, because they tell us they listen. So that helps. And so you giving them this advice and you giving them what they, need to hear, obviously both sides, that it is hard, but it also, don't give up, man. Keep going. This could be it.
Yeah. There's like a huge amount of people that come out of the Northwest Ohio region.
It's crazy.
Like either move to New York, or just like, even if it's not New York, that's another thing. Like, because you said you had young listeners, so I do have one other bit of stuff now for them, which is just with like COVID being what it was, and the return of the theater sort of world. I think New York. I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this correctly. I don't think moving to New York is like a necessity anymore. It used to be that you would graduate college, you move to New York, and that's where all the theaters go to get jobs. Every job I've gotten over the last 2 years since COVID really started has been video auditions, which you can do from anywhere. You do not need to. So I know with young people going into theater, a lot of them are just daunted by either, I don't want to live in New York City, that's not the scene for me, because it's obvious, it's a very, very unique place there, and it's not a lot of people's cup of tea as far as living there goes. It's also expensive. It's expensive as hell to live there. So I want to just stress that now, you don't have to do that with everything being videos, and with more and more things like that. It's opening up just the possibility to not be stuck in New York, Chicago, LA as your three major hubs. Like, I could be, here I am sitting in Pennsylvania. Like, I could be sitting here and I could be sending videos and getting jobs and not have to pay an exorbitant amount of rent or thing. Or I could live in Philly, which is much cheaper than New York, but I could still get to New York in about 90 minutes for an audition if it's a big deal and I have to go in person. So just things like that really, I think, open up more options for younger people now that are just getting into the career, to not be so pigeonholed into, oh, you have to move to New York if you want to do musical theater.
Very cool. I think that's one of those things that we were all ready for a long time. It's just the people in charge weren't willing to do it, It's like when they were forced to do it when COVID hit, and go, maybe we can use this FaceTimey thing that's been around for effing 15 years. Mm-hmm. It's like, why didn't you always do that? Yeah.
And from their perspective, like, video auditions are just, it's cheaper on their end, and they can get they can cover a greater distance. Cause like, my tour right now has people like cast in it that live in Chicago, and there's people that like our Johnny Cash is from Dayton, like lives in Dayton, like things like that. It's like, we're able to, they can pull from a much wider range of people.
Competition a little more stiff though too, because now they are pulling from North Dakota instead of just people in New York.
I think that's a good thing, because if I were one of those people out there in North Dakota sending in videos and getting jobs, like, that'd be great for me. And I think it helps New Yorkers that kind of think only of themselves and think in their own little New York bubble. It kind of helps them to branch out a bit and to look at people that aren't New Yorkers, because sometimes that's what you need in your show, is not a New Yorker. Like, you need somebody that is a little different personality wise, or just has a different aura feel to them,
Yeah, not every show's Newsies. Okay, you got to have people out of New York too.
Exactly. Like sure, there are the shows where you need your army of New York dancer boys to do it, where you have to, like, your identical like exactly 5'11" like Newsy boys across the line, like, whatever it is.
They all have the right accent naturally. Yeah.
Exactly. And then there's shows like Million Dollar Quartet, where it's like, we now open it up, like, that opens it up to everything, where, because it's so specific, it's one of the, we always call it the family, because there's like a Facebook group of all of us that do this show kind of around the country. And there's about 10 Jerry Lees, and there's 20 Elvises and things like that we just kind of all get these jobs around the country doing this show. And now with the ability to just video audition stuff, we're able to pull talent from lots of cool places where there is that, like one of the Elvises for the Christmas show. He's a guy that he'd never done theater before, but he did Elvis like contests.
Oh, okay.
Like there's a whole circuit of like these Elvis impersonators.
He's just a professional Elvis who got a paying job to do it. Wow, good for that person.
He's just a professional like Elvis impersonator.
I wonder if the ladies questioned him afterwards. I don't know. You're not really the Elvis. You don't look like him as much.
If they do, I'd be amazed, because that dude Alex is phenomenal.
He's legit.
He sings like Elvis. He moves like Elvis. He looks like Elvis.
Oh.
I'm like
So he's probably got a lot of swooners then,
Elvis.
instead. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's like I'm actually there.
Yeah, I mean, he's the coolest dude.
Real quick, you're kid from Perrysburg. You've probably seen many shows at the Stranahan, and then last night you're there on that stage. What was that like?
That was it was cool. It was kind of surreal seeing it from the stage side, like just looking out at all the empty seats when we were doing sound check, just being like, wow, I saw dozens of touring shows growing up when like at the Stranahan. We went as a family all the time, like to everything that went through there. We saw Phantom there and Wicked.
Do you have family in the audience?
Yeah. I had a lot of family there. I had my mom and dad and siblings. Yeah, I have my small army of like 15 comps tickets or whatever.
Nice.
So it was surreal. It was amazing.
Yeah, it was super cool to be back, because I've been touring with Million Dollar Quartet and stuff for about 3 years now.
Oh, wow.
But we hadn't played the Stranahan yet. We did Findlay. I played in Findlay, so I got close to home, but not quite.
Oh, the Marathon Center in Findlay?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep. But this was the first time being at my home theater, like the theater that I saw so many professional touring productions that came through there. And I think that, like, standing on the stage doing sound check, I was like, and thinking about this interview too coming up, that I was just like, look, like, the Stranahan was such a formative part of me wanting to do theater, seeing those professional shows there and seeing that and being just like, I want to do that. And now finally here I am on the stage doing that. And it was just such a crazy experience.
Next time you're in town, though, we got to try and get you beforehand instead of afterhand.
Yes.
After the fact, and get you in here and do stuff. And I know WTOL is a little bit shut down still with their having guests coming into the building, but we want to make sure that we can open that back up and have you guys come in, because we would definitely want to be able to meet you in person. I have not.
For sure.
So, and so we can complete the circle, I guess, of meeting each other. So thank you for coming on.
That'd be amazing.
Man. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.
Oh, you're kind of a big deal now. Now you're on a podcast, so you're obviously a big deal.
That's right. Is that what it is? Is that the marker?
That's it. That's how you know. Yeah. I mean, yeah, sure. We're not paying you or anything, but I guess the $1 Million Quartet's probably a bigger deal. That's cool though. You were in Sister Act, and you were in who were you? An ensemble in Full Monty? Because I don't think they had a very big ensemble.
I was in the ensemble. It's a super small ensemble, but I understudied Malcolm, one of the main guys.
Because which one was Malcolm? I don't remember. It's been a while since I saw it.
Malcolm is Malcolm's the one they find in the car towards the beginning of the show. Yeah, okay. He's sort of the nerdy awkward one that has like the really pretty high stuff that he sings.
Yeah. Okay. Was there like a Malcolm, rock smashing scene? Is that your?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
okay.
Malcolm. Yeah.
Smash with the rock. Yeah.
Yep. The big ass rock song.
Yeah. Big. Yeah. I just want to make sure that was the one. So I was like, it's been a while since I saw it. Malcolm. I've seen it a long time ago, but I remember seeing it and thinking, why wasn't this a bigger show? This should have been like
I don't know.
huger hit than
Love
what
it.
it was. Because
I love that show.
it has everything you need, in my opinion. It's a comedy, so it's funny, so people like to laugh. Obviously, it's full Monty. It's got like nudity stuff in it. Why, that should bump it up a little bit too.
Exactly.
It's like, and it's got good music. I'm like, what is the issue here? It's got a good story
Yeah,
about a town and people, and it's like the story was great.
It's such a weirdly heartwarming story too.
That too. Also.
And like you end up like by the end, you're rooting for those guys.
Yes,
you're like, yes, take it off. You're like,
take it off. Like, exactly.
We've been following you guys for like 2.5 hours, and like there's the guy that's like the bigger guy, and he's all like self-conscious about it. And you're like, no, like live it,
show
own
us your
it.
junk,
You're
man.
beautiful.
Let's go.
Like,
let's do it.
Yeah, let's go. Like you get so on their side. It's amazing. I love it. I love that show.
All right, we're gonna let you go, man. So thank you for coming on, though.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm hanging up so you can go actually eat.